Hi, my friends. So I'm here and kind of excited to share a deck with you that I hadn't heard of, but it's a 2023 deck that a friend of mine sent me a picture of and then immediately said, I'm getting this. So this is Tarot Ultraviolet. Now, this is a French deck, but, well, French by way of Canada. And the art card that comes with it is all in French, but as is the description of it. But I used my phone and modern technology to take a picture of it, of the art card, and it will actually translate it for you. So I'm going to translate this into English so I can read it to you in English. But the art card says, the Ultraviolet Tarot meets the need for an inclusive French game for women and people of gender diversity and LGBTQ+, in a spiritually rooted in the cycles of nature for my communities and me. Now, again, remember, this is digital translation, so it's not perfect. It's a tool for healing, introspection, and self-exploration for all witches, creatives, and those engaged in a curious spiritual practice of tarot. Taking up the metaphor of the spectrum of light, the ultraviolet tries to represent a variety of spiritual experiences and make us feel what exists beyond. Our future, queer, and eco-feminist revolutionaries, as the presence of our ancestors in our bodies. The imagery I created towards this tarot links human and non-human nature with particular attention to plants and animals that live on the territory I live in. This is obviously the artist speaking. In its colorful and spectral appearances, it refers to the rainbow dear to queer movements. I hope that this tarot can bring as much appeasement, pleasure, and discovery as the creative process has brought me. So that's just a rough translation of what the art card says. Now, the website that I ordered this from is all in French too, although I did manage to navigate that relatively easily as well. I know enough from my childhood and my high school French to sort of be dangerous. But I didn't grow up speaking French, but my grandparents did, and my mother did. So it's a really cool deck. It's chunky, so we'll put that out there. It's a tough shuff, as I say, but it's shuffleable. It is thick, you know what I mean? So it's nice cardstock, but it's thick. So I would always, sort of prefer something this size to be a little thinner, because it's a bit of a workout. It came in this bag. Really nice. I mean, my only complaint really is about the cardstock. Not my favorite back in the world, but other than that, I really like it. Oops. So I'm going to zoom in. We'll walk through the cards. I did do a little... I always forget how to zoom in on this stupid thing. Let's stand up and... here we go. I don't use this enough anymore to, remember things. But, alright, let's get this in frame. So, I mean, it's all the things that description said it is. It's gender diverse, it's racially diverse, it is body diverse, it's representational in many ways. It's got sort of a French influence. All the titles are in French. The court cards were renamed, so Pèlerin, which is French for pilgrim, is valet. Mystique is the queen, prophetess is the king, and guide is the knight. And that comes on a little card with the deck. But again, you'll recognize most of the cards. Now, I did notice, I did a draw of this on Instagram this morning, and a post, and I couldn't, the Nine of Wands came up and I couldn't quite tell immediately what I was looking at. I had to actually look to see what nine I was looking at by going through the whole deck, but it did, other than that. So the backs, again, not my favorite backs, so they're fine. But the fronts, which are what really matter, are gorgeous. So here's the Fool, here's the Magician, and I love the art sort of across the board. The High Priestess, or the Grand Priestess here. There are astrological associations and planetary associations on all the cards. Here's the Empress, here's the Emperor. And again, I think you'll see as we go through that, there is some, plenty, in fact, gender, sort of non-traditional assignments or presentations, which I think is great. Again, I think sort of blowing up the binaries in tarot is is fun and useful as a reader. So here's the Hierophant. So I did do a reading with this, and I thought it was really, a useful and interesting reading that I did for myself. So I guess, you could call this a review. I don't find that I, read with different decks differently. I tend to just read the way I read, and the decks will sort of dance with that, or I'll dance with the decks, so to speak. So it's really whether the deck is usable or not, and I find this very usable. So Justice is 8 in this deck, so it does have that French influence here. I really love it. I love this Hermit. This you're gonna see just the majors are great. Wheel of Fortune. This Strength card, this Force card, I think is amazing. This Hanged Man, or Le Pendu. I love this Death. Wow. This is just, it's Marseille influence, but it's fresh, it's modern. It's got kind of that wood block. They remind me of linoleum block prints. Now, because I didn't, I can't really read the website in French. I don't know what media were used to create this, but whatever was used, it's great. This is an amazing devil. I love this whole situation. Love the tower. It just is really fresh and modern and cool and queer. So my only quibble with it really is the thickness of the cardstock. I can riffle shuffle it, but it's a workout, and that's just a thing that I talk about because I have small hands. There are people who have dexterity issues. It's a practical thing. I love the moon. I love the sun. So amazing. I think that it's just a real winner. Honestly, there are other decks that I feel this reminds me of a little bit. Not in the art style, not in the choices. There's just sort of a vibe, a quality that this sort of feels akin to some other decks. I will shuffle it for you too, and I'll lay some cards out so you can see it. So here's the Ace of Wands, or Fire. I love that there are pencils and pens and stuff in the wand suit. The suits are color-coded in their way. So the Fire suit is very orange, very yellow. As you'll see, the cups are very blue. The swords, I think, are purple, and the pentacles are green. It is Waite-Smith influenced. It's not expressly Waite-Smith, which I always enjoy. I really like this Four of Wands, for example. The numerals do show up, which I find helpful, because it's not always immediately clear which number you're looking at. Sometimes the wands are wands. Sometimes a card would use these two as wands too, and sometimes they don't. This actually reminds me of a 9 of Swords I once drew, which is interesting. So here's the 6. So you can see the connection to Waite-Smith, but it's different. It's reinterpreted, and I appreciate that. Here's the 7. I'm sorry, the 8. So this was the one I pulled earlier, and to get 9 out of it, I realized I had to count all the slats and the frame. I remember correctly, but it wasn't immediately clear that this was Fire until I recognized the color coding. And so here's the 10. This is a much more Smithy drawing. So again, Pèlerin, my awful pronunciation. I'm sure my grandparents would be ashamed for many reasons. The Pilgrim, the Guide. So this would be the Page, the Knight, and then the Mystique would be the Queen in traditional decks, and then the Prophetess would be the King. But this, of course, takes it to a genderless concept. So those are the wands. The cups, again, blue, green tones. Just really beautiful, I think. Expressive, cool, abstracted, funky, and just cool, cool different interpretations of those images. So I think it's really cool. I keep saying it's cool. It's cool. Yes, I think I was trying to say earlier, I don't know if I said it, I'll put the website of the deck in the description. It is, as I can tell, only available through the creator's site. It did come international from Canada. It did The website is in French, but I did manage to navigate it relatively well. And this is the Suit of Cups. So again, the Pilgrim, the Guide, the Mystique or the Queen, and the Prophetess or the King. So here we are in swords, or knives in this case. It's purple. Just really, really cool new interpretations of familiar images. And I think, again, very, very, very nice. I dig. This one struck me as interesting with the mask, and I sort of thought, ugh, who wants to think about that? But, you know, again, part of our lives, right? It's interesting, too, because when you think about the Seven of Swords and Wade Smith with that sort of dude carrying the swords away, this is a very different interpretation. And I don't immediately know how I would read this, just working purely from the images. You know what I mean? So it's interesting. It's provocative, I guess, in that way, which is cool. Here's the 8. The 9. And cell phone. Anyone who's been kept awake by their cell phone. Let's see here. And then the 10. Again, the Pilgrim. The Guide, or the Knight. The Knights all have some kind of travel device. So one of them has a walker, one of them has a bike. Several of the characters in the deck are amputees or are disabled in some way, you know what I mean? Visibly disabled, I guess is the way to say it, etc. So, you know, that's a thing that you don't see a lot of. Usually it's just the chariot in a wheelchair. So here we get into Pentacles. Love this. Three Sisters Garden kind of vibes. You know, and it's also nice to get away from the kind of somewhat, problematic is a tough word. You know, the Four of Pentacles often gets interpreted in a lot of, visually interpreted in maybe some ways that aren't ideal, that have some anti-Semitism in them. So to reimagine what we're looking at, I think, again, is cool. So this is just a really, you know, again, I said on Instagram this morning when I went through this myself that and did a reading that it was, you know, undeniably cool. And I mean, there is just a coolness to it. And I don't mean cold, I mean like funky, fresh, you know, like the kids say. So here we get into the Court of Coins, so the Pilgrim of Coins or Pentacles. See the Knight or the Guide has a skateboard. The Mystique or the Queen, and the Prophetess or the King. So I'll zoom out. I will shuffle it for you. So overhand's fine, but you know it's big, and I've tried to shuffle riffle a couple ways. I tried to corner shuffle it. It didn't work that well. I can just about get my hands around it for a normal riffle. But again, it's big. And it's not necessarily, you know, if you have larger hands than I do, probably this will be a little bit easier. It bends fairly okay, you know. This is giving me kind of the cardstock that a lot of mass market Oracle decks kind of go through, and even a lot of indie tarot decks. It's you know, again, it's just a bit of a workout. But again, you know. Cardstock is always a matter of individual preference. It overhands pretty well when you don't have a tripod in your face. tend to shuffle in threes. Not 3 times, but like I'll do like mental groups of 3. So it's just a thing that I'm sharing with you just because it's in my head. So I'll lay them out. You know, I think it's really evocative. I think it gives, as a reader, it gives you space to play, because before you even approach them through, you know, what they're named, you can explore them sort of visually and see what patterns emerge, what colors emerge. You can sort of see out of the gate, you know, because of the color scheme, that this is a very watery reading. You know, like my first impression is that this is very watery, it's very airy. There are no trumps, you know, we've got 1 fire, one coins or pentacles. So this is really a story of water and air. And then I can get into, okay, here we have the 5 of Swords, you know, here's the Ace of Swords, here's the Ace of Wands, you know what I mean? Like, so then I can start reading it. Let me do another one and see if we get some of the majors in. There's the Hierophant. So I dig it a lot, you know. I'm going to use that word. I think it's really cool. Probably could have shuffled it more. Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of decks that this sort of gives me vibes similar to. The Apparition Tarot, I think, is one. Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. I keep wanting like a big Trumpy. I hate that word so much, but it's also the word that I decided to use for majors years ago. I just sort of dig the majors quite a lot, so I want to see them here in the spread. Yeah, I definitely need to shuffle more. Anyway, you know, just really, really beautiful work overall. Some minor quibbles aside, personal taste aside, I think bravo to this. I really love it. You know, I mean, being an international shipping situation, it was spendy. So there's that. But, you know, given international shipping like Canada, you know, I mean, you'd think it wouldn't be that big. Oh, I guess I'll show you these since they're here. I've been making candles for some magical work. So here's an owl that's infused with Solomon seal root. In sort of I use white beeswax for all of these, but this is just natural white natural isn't really a fair word. This is a little Venus, that's infused or embedded with lovage root for self-love. This doesn't have a purpose yet, but it will. This will get anointed with some kind of oil for some spell work. And this is just this veiled woman I thought was really beautiful. A pyramid's always a cool shape. This actually is a pyramid that I made from another pyramid that just had a lot of wax left over, and I decided not to. So you can see like there's some dots in here because the original had some glitter in it, and I just remelted the wax, added some more, and made a new green candle. So the pyramid, and then a skull is kind of a go-to. This should have been black. I sort of had started melting the wax for this and said, well, let me just add more and then add the black dye, but I didn't add enough. So this sort of interesting gray-purple. You can also see here that one of the things that I explore in the making is working with different magical oils in the candles. And I don't know if you can see, but I sort of thought, well, rather than, you know, infusing a whole batch of wax so that I can only use it for one thing, I poured the oil into the mold, and it sort of created this dent in the skull. So I know not to do that anymore. And I realized after I poured it that it wouldn't mix in. So really, if I want to do that next time, I've successfully mixed in oils into candles before, but thought that would be an interesting way to sort of have multi-purpose. One of the things I'm always trying to do is how do I maximize the wax I'm using? You know. Anyway, blah blah blah. Just because they're there, I thought I would show you that. So yeah, anyway, the Tarot Ultraviolet, again, I'll post the information in the description. Beautiful work, really like it. Chef's kiss. So we'll talk to you later. Be good, take care, stay healthy, and we'll talk soon.